Welcome everyone, Heba here. Welcome to our channel if you're new. Today's segment is about the Babylon's time trap, the 666 code and the Samsara cycles. So heavy topic, but it's necessary, especially this day and age. A lot of people are looking for answers, so I hope in today's segment I will shed light on many of the concerns or questions you have that remain unanswered. So many people, first I want to start by saying that I think we all are feeling a sense of being tied to something somewhat like a prison, and we don't really understand why. There's this instinctive awareness that something here is just not right, something here is limiting us. This much we can all agree on, okay? I feel like we all feeling that something's binding us, restricting us, and limiting our true nature. It's like a sense of a bondage is what I'm talking about here. But also taking this further today and talking about soul contracts, which in my opinion are agreements made without our full awareness, because we actually incarnate without memory, as you know. So soul contracts remain something that is really deeply misunderstood. I'm just going to talk a little bit about that today and see where we go with it. So in this episode, I'm going to dive deep into the Saturn Moon Matrix and what has kept a veil over the human perception. Why so many people feel like Earth is not a freedom planet, but a controlled environment. So I'm going to break down also the symbolism, the numbers, the geometries, and link it all with Saturn's role in the myth and the occult systems, and how soul contracts and karma actually work inside this density, this matrix. I'm going to look at the shadow field, the alien machinery timeline, and the distortion of true light. And I'm going to take it further and address the question of imbalance, the gender imbalance, more specifically the wounded dark feminine, and how this reincarnational loop or the cycles of samsara, how they have been maintained, because there's been a trick, okay, and we're stuck inside this system, this samsara cycle. So I want to talk about that and talk about inner strength, shadow work, the importance of shadow work, the importance of healing, and the path out of the Saturnian system through integration and through remembering who we are beyond the veil. So I'm going to start this segment. I'm going to start with the obvious signs and then go deeper into the mechanics behind this realm. And of course, as usual, end with solutions that help us break from this loop and return to source. So I'm going to start by saying that humans originally were meant to incarnate here with a full memory. If you've watched my other episodes, I talk about this in quite extensively, especially in the Atlantis segment. So we were meant to be born here with full memory, but due to certain historical events, our memories, our gene codes were wiped even before birth. Okay, there was a type of technology used, still being used, keeping the Earth functioning as that prison planet, a soul prison controlled by the Saturn Lunar Matrix. In this matrix, in the Saturn Lunar Matrix, the Saturn acts as the black sun, which transmits codes, and these codes are limiting frequencies, suppressing our human consciousness, suppressing our evolution. And what the moon does is the moon amplifies these signals. It amplifies the signals from Saturn, helping to create a field of fear, emotional intensity, control, rigidity in beliefs, dependency, and most of all, worship-based programming. It's the precursor to all known religions today. And this all originates from the Saturn Lunar Matrix. And it's not just the Saturn Lunar Matrix, but predominantly this Saturn Lunar Matrix. So I'll be discussing the number 666. It's a carbon code. 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, symbolizing what? Symbolizing our carbon-based body, therefore our entrapment in this matter-based density. Now, this entire full system is, if you don't know, it's actually overseen by Metatronic timekeepers. And one of these Metatronic timekeepers is the Saturn Kronos, who is the Punisher and who is the Karmic restorer or the Karmic balancer. And as usual, don't miss the ending of the segment, because when I wrap it up, I always offer code breaking freedom and healing solutions. So stay to the end. And as mentioned, I want to talk about soul contracts, because a common question often arises: are soul contracts the same as karmic contracts? And are these agreements made consciously, or were we tricked into sacrificing parts of ourselves to satisfy this false demiurgic god? Okay. And now, before I get into the segment, I want to make something clear. When I speak of God or source, I'm not referring to a man sitting in the clouds. I'm talking about one true divinity, the internal God source, the ever-present, ever living consciousness that people simply call source. I'm not talking about false gods that are self-appointed as authority figures, certainly not referring to God as in the biblical sense. In fact, all my episodes, my standpoint on who God is and who is not is clear. So if you are not eternal, you are not God. You originate from God, we all do, from eternal source. Therefore, you begin as sacred. We all begin as sacred and holy. And from there, we make different choices that shape the unique path of the soul and the oversoul. So yes, it comes down to personal choices. And some choices pull us down in various degrees of fall, while others lift us up into the eternal cycles of creation and life. Okay. And just a disclaimer here, today I want to talk about the idea of sacrifice as well. So I want to acknowledge up front that this word can bring a lot of emotions for people. So if it feels uncomfortable, you may want to sit this episode out. Now, there's something I've come to believe over time that is, based on patterns and based in history and what I observed in the world. It's a sense that we're living in a kind of controlled environment, some call it prison planet. And I'm feeling and I'm seeing, observing that the Babylonian dynamics are still playing out in this modern day and age, in the modern form. It may sound like a dystopian view, and I understand that, but I want to explain why I see it this way. For me, as long as there's a system that continues to frame karma as punishment, as long as there's an expectation of giving up something essential from ourselves, this will necessitate I go into soul contracts, by the way. And so there is this feeling, or there is this sense that we're still participating in a structure that keeps us limited. The question becomes, are we currently giving up parts of ourselves to satisfy something that's not aligned to true source? Are we giving something up when we come here? And some souls come here for different reasons, as you may know. Some are here to learn, some are here to heal, some are here to integrate. And there is a smaller group of people currently here to help and to learn and to ascend. because Earth is a major crossroad. This world is a crossroad. Earth is the being that happens to be strategically located as a major stargate on a planetary level, on a cosmic level, and in a galactic level even. In other words, if you want to rise up, Earth is a good place to be. Now, unfortunately, what has been happening for some time now, like thousands of years and more, is that this convergence happening here is happening inside a net. So those that wanted to come and learn and ascend, they're being trapped in a net, a veil, if you like, placed over the human perception. Now, when I say veil, you may think, okay, it's an external magnetic circumference or some kind of veil that's put around Earth. But that veil is also placed on our human perception. Therefore, we have been deceived, we have been trapped, and we have been pulled into a system that's designed to limit our awareness. We're meant to have much more awareness than what we currently have. We've lost over 96% of this awareness that we're meant to have. And it's all thanks to many things, but mainly the cube matrix, known as the Saturn Moon matrix, also called the tesseract, because it overlays our reality and influences how we perceive things. It influences our choices, it influences our karma, and influences our contracts as well. It's the same system that suffocates the path of Amaria, the path of the 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, which is the path towards the next level of evolution, to the echo world, because it disallows us from experiencing many timelines at once. Instead, we're limited to one linear time possibility, one projection only, one self, one time. That's why when we sleep, we only see one movie, one story play out. We can't sense ourselves sleeping and experiencing dream state at the same time. So it's either waking state or sleeping state or unconscious or subconscious. There is only one linear timeline we're experiencing, one self at a time. Because of this, everything seems to have a single beginning and an end. There's an end, that's why we have a calendar, because we have dates, a beginning and an end, and everything seems to move in one direction, in one way. This is Father Time, the Yahweh super computer of consciousness. Okay. Now, yes, there are movies like The Matrix that purport that we're stuck inside a system, a computer system. I see that the similarities with reality, how I perceive reality, but not quite, because we're much more than just a software that they can entrap. We have an aspect, the monadic aspect, that we can bring back to life and completely break from these entrapments. Okay, I'll get to that in this segment, but for now we'll just continue to explain Saturn and the role Saturn plays from the perspective of several traditions. So, in the Greek mythos, for example, Saturn is allegorically the Kronos, or Kronos with a C, Cronus, and this is the Father Time, aka the Grim Reaper. The notable thing is Saturn has rings, the Lord of the Rings, tribute to Saturn. Those rings are said to slow down the movement of atoms, which in another way is another way of explaining solidification and lowering our frequency and transforming our template into a more carbon-based form. So remember, I said the 666 is a carbon form. This is what this realm is about. Contrary to what the sun does, which accelerates, the sun accelerates atom movement, and it accelerates the electromagnetic field movement and therefore aids in ascension. So anything essentially that gets trapped into Saturn's orbit is hindered by time and space. And every hour that goes by, you can see that it's all made to abide by the law, by the finite law of Saturn. So every hour has 60 minutes, and there are 60 seconds, and in every minute, and it's no coincidence that a day is 24 hours. If you add 2 and 4 equals 6. So we have 60 minutes, 60 seconds, and the 6 from adding 2 and 4, 24 hours. That's how you get the 666. We are bound in time. We are bound in time. And as long as we are bound to the Babylonian system, we are bound to unwanted soul contracts, we are bound to Kala, and we are bound to memory wiping, and we are bound to reincarnation. Okay, so there is a way out of this. Just bear with me. Let me explain all this first before I get to the freedom solutions. Okay. Now, another system that fortifies the cube matrix, geometrical pattern, is also the Cabala system. I'm not a fan of the Cabala system because I can see through limiting codes. It may appear nice and glossy on the outside, but there's really something that doesn't sit well with me personally. Using the Saturnian module, the Cabala system is about using the Saturnian module to explain what evolution is. And the Sephiroth, for example, and Saturn are closely related. To be specific, the 3 on the Cabala tree of life, the 3 Sephira is called the Binah on the Cabala tree of life. This represents boundaries. It represents form. It represents limitation, time, karma, and also represents matter. And we've got the 10 Kabbalistic tree of life, the 10 Sephira, and the 10 is the horns of the beast. The fallen 10 Sephira, spheres of energy, is a universal architecture. It's actually a manipulation of the organic tree of life, the 12 spheres tree of life, Kathara grid tree. The Kathara tree of life leads to something called Dart, death. And that's the portal to the fallen creator God, AI worlds. Another tradition that also honors the Saturn Lunar Matrix is Western occultism. So we've got, for example, the Thelema, which is Aleister Crowley's religion, the Order of the Golden Dawn. These kinds of institutions are all linked to Thoth school of mysticism. So there's an association between Western occultism and the Saturn cube matrix. It's clearly evident here. Saturn in the path of Tau, the path of the Kabbalah, is connected to Yesod, to Malkuth, which is the final descent of the soul, the moment the subtle becomes physical. And who controls this process is Saturn. The dark, Saturn governs the dark mother, the womb of forms and the laws of manifestation. So this is where the idea of Saturn as an architect, as the teacher, as a karmic gatekeeper comes from. The path of Tau describes Saturn as a gatekeeper and the lord of incarnation. And this corresponds to density 1, where consciousness becomes really limited and locked into something called an Iyumbi structure. In freedom teachings, we have the Iyumbi here just below the navel. And when we free that lock, we open up to the radial body, and we open up to more layers, density layers, and we become eternal. We connect to the eternal spark of consciousness. So the Iyumbi, at the Iyumbi lock, there is something a structure that's currently sitting there that's restricting access to higher layers of our spiritual anatomy. And Saturn is the guardian of that realm, the density 1. It's holding the thresholds the threshold between embodied limitation and higher dimensional remembrance. There are also other traditions that firmly believe we're stuck in the cube matrix of Saturn. At the same time, there are widely accepted views where Saturn is the teacher, the guru, the part that forces discipline and learning and relearning lessons and transcending limitations. Tough teacher, okay? But Saturn, in a way, forces us to strip the illusions and forces clarity, forces integration of the shadow. So you can see it that way if you want to. You can see that there is some truth in that. We are here to integrate shadow, so in a way that's aligns with our general belief system. So you know, I'm a big advocate to healing and to, you know, but not in a way that's punishing to anybody. So we're not in debt to Saturn, we're not in debt to anyone, and we do not owe Saturn anything, because the minute we acknowledge that Saturn wants something from us, in return, it will give us a big chunk of karma off. You know, what we're acknowledging is we're acknowledging hierarchy. And perhaps this is how it works. But it is, do we want to be locked into that system where we need Saturn to take off some big chunk of karma so that we can have a happier life? No. My perspective is that the shadow body we carry in dimension 1 is only the lowest layer of our shadow. And according to the freedom teaching, the freedom teaching lineage, the shadow does not stop on density 1. The shadow is multi-layered and extends through the entire dimensional scale, appearing as a dualistic mindset. It's like a tug of war between the reptilian mind and an angelic mind. And in this duality would extend all the way up to dimension 11. So in other words, shadow is not just an emotional or physical thing, it's intertwined in the entire time matrix. And it is what is locking us into a Saturnian system. So when we reach dimension 12, and we don't reach 12 because we go there, we just expand, okay? We integrate. When we integrate into dimension 12 in our consciousness and level of awareness, integration being the emphasis, what happens is we reunite, okay? And I'm saying reunite because we've done this before. We reunite with our Christos avatar. This is the point of integration and restoration. This is when we become whole and the shadow completely disappears from view. So learning about limitations, learning about our distortions, learning about our shadow, while incarnated in the flesh, even within the Saturn Lunar Matrix, can be helpful, because in being here, we're beginning to transcend Saturn's influence if we take the path of healing and if we know where to start, basically. So, and it's always within. It's not an external proxy, it's within. Okay. Now, in the freedom teachings, we are given the inner technologies, of course, to remove locks between density levels, to remove veils, to open up our perception. This means we do not need Saturn, we do not need Anubis or any external gatekeeper to let us in. The work is entirely wholly internal. We must unlock the limitations around our consciousness, though, to access those higher layers of spiritual anatomy. And these layers are, some of them are directly connected to truth. So in expanding and unlocking these veils, these locks, what happens is we can directly come in contact with the truth, not a distorted emanation of the truth, not a fake light disguised as truth, and it's the real purpose of being here. So when people say we're bound to Saturn, The answer is both. It's true, partially true, but also partially false, because when they say we're bound to Saturn, what they're saying is we have no choice, and we do have a choice. We are bound to Saturn only if we choose to remain bound. That's my view. Now, something personal I like to share, because Matt and I, we like to be transparent with our work, and not pretend with something that we're not, or, we always like to be really transparent and predictable, okay? So something I want to open up about, and that's, I've opened up in the past about the path I was on, the path of the yogic path, and studying the Vedas and all that, and that's, I owe it to my teachers, I owe it to the Vedas that have allowed me to have these different perspectives, so I can see the relation and interrelation between these different lineages. So I'm happy I took that path, even though I'm course correcting now. We're doing that every minute, every day, right? We're always learning, and we're always redefining our standards and our values. So no one's ever reached. When you hear someone says, I've reached, they're false. They're false prophets. Anyway, so I want to open up about something that I have, I don't know, I just got guided to open up about this. Many people are curious about why I use astro-metaphysical psychology, so in other words, Vedic astrology, to explore someone's life path and do a natal chart and all that. And yes, it is a metatronic practice. It is, yes, it's encoded in a finite system. It is metatronically coded, for sure. So I'm not defending that at all. But I'm using it for a reason, although not so, it may be an unconventional reason to you, but to me, it makes sense. My response is that I use this form of astro-metaphysical psychology analysis because, by the way, I don't do predictions, because if I did predictions, that's like saying we fated, and I don't believe in fate, okay? We don't assume events. I don't assume events. We're not locked into a grid system where we're all fated. Okay, so I don't go down that way. I don't align with this view at all. Those astrologists that make predictions, I don't agree with that. Okay, so I don't make predictions and I don't make projections. I use the system in a unique way. I use it because I actually like to think that I understand the illusion here. And the Vedic astrology is a tool to read metaphysical and the physical construct of density oneself. And if used properly, it can be a form of healing and a form of liberation. Saturn is often portrayed as a dark one, the evil one, the one without a spirit, devoid of spirit. But we must remember that all life is an emanation of source. When we hate something, we become that very thing that we hate. So simply speaking, Saturn reflects the shadow aspects within us. It's the mirror. The truth is that Saturn in itself is not evil, but Saturn is actually being hijacked by beings who chose the opposite expression of eternal life. They chose a finite path where they can rule and be powerful. Whereas in its pure form, Saturn is a wise elder, the gatekeeper of earned mastery of the shadow. So it can be a good teacher on this density level. It can be, it can teach boundaries. It can teach patience. It teaches legacy. But the cult, the FA cult, has hijacked and inverted Saturn's codes, just like they've done to the sun. So when we speak of the Saturn Lunar Matrix, I'm not advocating let's destroy Saturn. Just like you wouldn't go and destroy someone because you disagree with them. But what we're here to do is we're here to liberate ourselves and others from the confines of the black hue matrix. We're here to liberate Saturn from the hands of those who weaponized its energy against us. And so when we transcend those shadow aspects, Saturn dissolves from a holographic reality. This is the truth that many people struggle to grasp. So yes, I use astrology, very, very limited way. I don't give it much time, maybe a few hours a month, a little bit more sometimes, but I'm not heavily invested. I'm heavily invested in the freedom teachings. I'm heavily invested in reversing my Metatronic codes, assisting people, guiding people on the path to freedom. I'm here to break codes and to be the bridge between the old world and the new world. So I don't use astrology in the way 99.9% of people do, not for prediction and not for worship. But I like to use it to identify the codes that keep a person's life path bound in the Saturnian cube matrix. I actually read a chart in my own unique way. I do that to free myself, and I free others from their own chart that they think they're bound to. And here's a simple metaphor if you want to understand this better. If you're moving through a labyrinth, would you rather hold a map, or would you wander in circles until you lose energy and risk being misled and fall into another maze hidden inside this one? Or would you rather hold a map and walk straight through the labyrinth? So that's what I do. I've discovered a way to use this as a map to navigate my limited consciousness here so that I can evolve past this. And so we work with what we have. I choose this tool because I understand the illusion. And when the illusion is understood, it's only then that it can be transcended. If you don't understand the illusion, how are you going to transcend the illusion? So that's my role, to help people escape the codes that bind them to their natal chart. Because one thing I teach as well is that birth codes, natal charts are not destiny. No, they're not destiny. They simply the limiting architecture of what's been superimposed from the cube matrix. I show people where stuckness in their lives exist, and I like to think that I help them in some way by giving the key and the map, so to speak. So it's a spiritual empowerment tool, and the point is not to get trapped in the illusion, but to transcend it fully and completely, to integrate and repair. So I serve as a bridge between the two worlds for the sake of liberation. Okay. Now, there is difficulty, a deep subconscious fear shaped over aeons by Saturnian matrix through karma, through bondage, and through spiritual amnesia. But even that fear is just another layer to integrate. So I don't promote Metatronic technology. I do not use astrology for Saturnian worship or karmic looping. I use astrology as a metaphysical astrology, as a diagnostic tool to identify where aspects of the self are stuck and where the template is still tied to the Saturnian matrix, where freedom is needed in a soul's life so it can progress. Because if you don't understand what keeps you bound here, your ego overlays, your epigenetic imprints, the spells, the subconscious programs, there is no amount of techniques from the freedom teachings that will free you. So it's all about the ego work first. My role is my mission. I like to believe that my mission involves delving into the shadow and bridging worlds. This is my template. I've had this guidance for some time now. I use this bridge to step in unknown territories where most people avoid. And I bring back the lifeline. And yeah, if you're in prison and you don't have the keys or the map, how will you escape the prison? There's a map for everything. There's a key for everything. But if you only look toward the light and ignore the dark, you will never ever free yourself. So yeah, the greatest requirement for anyone who works with the dark is having a little bit of inner strength and a steady mind, a resilient mind, a spiritual connection that cannot be shaken. So not a mind that one day is connected, one day is not. It's got to be like steady connection that is unwavering, because we're dealing here with dark forces who are super intelligent. They know how to manipulate technology. They know how to reward. They know how to distract. And this is why discernment becomes a form of protection. Part of my path is to enter the shadow with clear eyes, and I don't like to enter too deeply into the shadow, but there's a limit. I know my own limitations. And when we understand the shadow, when we understand the veil of illusion, it begins to fall away on its own without even needing to do anything, because we start to see the truth of this duality, the light, the dark, that are existing side by side. And from that clarity, we choose the path we walk. Then we make the choice. I understand this and I understand this. No, I do not choose the dark. I want to walk here, but I understand this as well. In that knowing, in knowing the opposite expression, something else becomes possible. We can guide people and beings from the dark back to source. And for those beings who have drifted way too far to return and to be redeemed from their current path, they're still not lost. They too follow a path. They dissolve back into cosmic dust, eventually reforming and re-entering the cycles of creation. So nothing is truly lost. This is my stance. This is my response to people who say that if you're Christic, you should not look into the dark and you should not use astrology. I don't use astrology to bind myself in the Saturn Matrix. I use it to free myself and others. And there's a pattern that keeps us stuck here. I'd like to think that I cracked some of those codes personally. So these keys that once bound us become initiation keys for something greater for us, for integration, for transmutation, and also evolution. Okay, so that's just a little thing I wanted to insert here, just to make things clear. And Ashayana also teaches that we must understand and allow the opposite expression to exist, because instead of hate and escape and rejection, when we do those things, when we hate, escape, and reject, there is a fear. There's an element of fear, and in fearing something and hating it and wanting to escape it, we become that thing. We hate something immensely, we merge with it. Integration is not the same as acceptance. So by doing integrational work, we're not accepting the dark. We're not saying, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine what you're doing, that's okay. We're not accepting it. But where it's allowed to coexist without allowing it to define us and our path. Because after every descent, there's always a rise. All life eventually returns to source, and nothing is ever lost. So I'm open and transparent about this. If you have specific questions, reach out. I welcome thoughtful, intelligent comments. I'm always interested in perspectives. I'm always interested in research and learning. This is how we always redefine and deepen our work. Okay. Now, the next part of this segment is I want to go into a little history that ties into the story of Black Saturn Cube Matrix and how we arrived here. How did that come into existence, the whole Saturn Matrix? So essentially, approximately 22,000 years ago, sorry, 1 second. Negative groups, negative alien groups, negotiated deals for Earth territories in exchange for humans, for labor, for sex, and slave colonies. These negative alien factions began exchanging treaties on and off planet, including systematically hunting down the Guardian, the Blue Flame, Melchizedek Templars, who were protecting the planet network at the time. This is the source of the utter destruction of humans' historical timelines. And this is when the alien invaded genetic modification programs using Enki DNA skins were used to corrupt the gene pool, to corrupt the cellular memories recorded in angelic human DNA. And from this particular timeline, the Thothian Naburian agendas designed the Naburian electrostatic transduction field. So a Naburian electrostatic transduction field, aka net fields. So the net field was installed by the Naburian races all over the planet, and that, of course, prepared the false magnetism of the Lunar Matrix and the Black Saturn Cube connected to the lunar zodiac imprints. This is when the planets were weaved into this dominance agenda. So the net of the alien machinery was designed to exert incarnation control so that the gender Christic twins could not find each other and instead be born on different timelines, one on parallel, one on this earth, and since they were in places that they couldn't ever incarnate together. And that's to prevent gender twins from merging. The cult of Saturn arose through, then we have secret societies that were born, the secretive priesthoods, the Babylonian seers, the Phoenician merchants, and then, of course, the black nobility, the European black nobility, who I believe are the Master Templars, the Master Masons. And these mastered Saturn's energy to dominate their own societies and the rest of the world. Their system followed the Black Bible. It relied on inverted laws. So anything that was organic and real, it became inverted. They inverted the codes, inverted everything. And they created the straw man to treat human beings as assets and commodities instead of souls. And then birth registrations became a thing, and they become contractual. So there was a contract, a binding contract. Admiralty law, the law of the sea, was elevated. So it took precedence over the law of the land. And this is why we become citizens. Citizenship. It's a maritime construct. Under Admiralty frameworks, we are governed. We're governed as if we are vessels navigating the sea, not sovereign beings standing in the land. This is the language of citizenship. It's reflected in the law of the ship. Rituals. So then there was rituals, sacrificial inversions during harvest festivals, during solstice and equinoxes, the precession of the equinoxes. They all became in sync with this Saturn lunar matrix. And through this artificial net, the moon controlled many things as well on Earth. So it controlled women's fertility, the incarnational gates of all those who chose endless reincarnational loop into third dimensional reality, the Karmic cycle, the law of Samsara. This occurred and still does through the artificial net, which was cast upon the Earth through the magnetosphere, which was responsible for keeping the veils of deception in place within the collective mind, generating shadow bodies and layers of negative imprinting, sexual misery programs, which can only occur through separation from source. through monadic reversals. So this continued energy siphoning events further brought upon and perpetuated divisions between masculine and feminine. That gave rise to the feminine movement, because it was about, okay, take your power back against the masculine. And that was backed up by the moon, the lunar matrix, the energy, the moon. Then there was moon worship ceremonies. These are great examples of energy siphoning events. Little do people know that these events take place around the world are contributing to personal planetary grid work reversal. People tend to believe, oh, light is light. It's cast from a high place in the sky. Therefore, it's positive. Artificial light is more harmful than dark. It is more harmful than dark. In dark, you learn something. In light, artificial light, you're blinded. It's an entrapment. Sin is linked to moon worship and to feminine consciousness, hence why we have moon goddess teachings resurfacing. It's coming out of distorted Isis and Thoth school of Atlantis. And the Anunnaki moon space station works to enslave and reverse the currents of feminine consciousness, further prolonging separation. The red wave, or the red Nile, because the Nile is symbolic of fertility and continuity. When it's red, it's fallen into fragmentation, and this is the meaning of the red Nile. It's referring to the fall in duality programming. This was all done by anchoring in the Niburian phantom technology called the sonic checkerboard polarity distortion scalar waves. So the checkerboard, the black and white checkerboard. And this was inserted into the planet, and it runs through the black heart crucifixion implants in the ley lines, or the dragon X lines, which, by the way, include reversal codes in our own blood, as we are extensions, of course, of these codes, these grids. I want to also take this opportunity to clear something up. There's some confusion about light, what's true and what's dead, or what is fake. There's something called Shona dead light field. It's a field of light made up of frozen dead light particles or crystals. These crystals, they don't flash on and off, as in the case with eternal light, aka heliotalic currents. So Shona fields are made up of frozen crystallized light units, except the light is non-renewable, has no benefit to the life field whatsoever, because it's not renewable, it's non-renewable. And what this light is responsible for is it's creating a life field we experience as holographic and a holographic insert, and it's not the real thing. That's why sometimes we wake up feeling like this world's not real. I'm not feeling the realness in it. I experience that on a regular basis. It's crazy, especially lately, because the real light doesn't make you feel like something is just not real, you know. Shona dead light does that. It's also what causes the yin-yang configuration, because that's a closed geometrical circuit linked to the torus field. And what sustains these Shona dead light fields is the closed circuit yin-yang geometry. So these Shona fields become miasmic in the field, generating what is called an artificial Merkaba. That eventually siphons the body's eternal light, Shalaya, transforming it into Shona dead light. And when it's transformed, when the Merkaba is transformed into Shona, it's priming it for merger into inorganic fallen matrices and black hole systems. It's how these reverse frequency technologies were created. And by the way, at the center of the black hole is another geometrical configuration. It's called the Vesica Pisces. And through the Vesica Pisces, because it acts as a portal, every time you accept a code, you're actually aligning with the portal that leads you to the other end of where it's meant to take you. But the Vesica Pisces is a portal through which all the energies are toroidically, so through the toroidal configuration. You know that. Not the butterfly, the ever regenerating butterfly configuration called the Yan Yun. No, it's the Yin Yang. It's a closed circuit. It's closed circuit, so you're essentially recycling your own energy over and over and over until implosion. So these are all traps and snares in the system. These are all key codes that you are accepting inadvertently because you don't know the real story behind it. And it's a trick to get you to sign up unwanted contracts with certain beings that will keep you in that reincarnational loop. So one of them is the Vesica Pisces. As I said, it's at the center of the black hole. It's the portal through which all energies are toroidically birthed into Metatron Q. And the Shona deadlight crystals actually form a poison skin between our atom currents and the natural etheric blueprints. What it does, it's like a skin, and within the skin, it's poison skin. It prevents full communication and it distorts certain organic geometries. The etheric and atomic currents are naturally designed to interact and blend at certain points. Some of these blends are more etheric than atomic, while others are more atomic than etheric. But when they're not talking to each other, it creates different types of densities and holographic inserts that are completely fake. And the Shona crystals prevent that natural binding and natural blending. So there's a miscommunication, so there's a misfiring, and a completely holographic world is born from that. And this is the world we look at and think it's real. It's light is not light. There is eternal light, direct, like the organic codes of the solar logos. This is true light, the solar logos, but there's an artificial dead light. It's like a reflection of the moonlight or the light at the end of the tunnel that you hear about in the afterlife. Yes, I just wanted to make that distinction. And by the way, I will be making a segment dedicated to the sun, how the sun's codes were hijacked by Metatronic codes, and also delve into something called the Aquiline Sun. To stay tuned, so stay tuned for that one. And by the way, support our channel in any way possible if this information is helping you. So just liking, hearting, sharing, in whichever way, press the thanks button, comment, engage with other Christic people in the channel. That would be great. Now, from the Saturn Moon Matrix, I want to talk about the wounded dark feminine archetype, the Mother Darkness. It's the one-eyed dark witch, or the dark goddess, wounded feminine. Many traditions revere this figure. They revere this figure, like, the Madonna, the dark feminine archetype, the Lilith, Isis. But just remember, that's not what you're told, is not the real story, because the essence of the wounded dark feminine archetype is parasitic. This is the opposite to the divine feminine. Her touch drains the life force, and what it does, it leaves you spiritually depleted. You may meet feminine like that. Of course, there's masculine too, but I'm not really talking about the masculine right now. So when I talk mainly about the divine feminine, that's been wounded and turned into a dark feminine side through this Saturn Moon Matrix. So we're going on a journey of healing, which means the divine feminine is redeeming her distorted codes, her organic codes. And so the divine feminine is the antithesis for the wounded dark feminine. It gains its apparent power through dark witchcraft, the wounded dark feminine, through the Saturn Lunar false matrix, and the false Prosiac memory grid that suppresses the true memories and identity of who she really is. This distortion feeds on siphoned energy, on the illusion, on glamour and psychic manipulation. That's why you see a lot of psychics out there. Instead of helping you, they are siphoning your codes. That's what the opposite to a divine feminine does. This is why people fall into the trap of the Saturn Moon matrix, because it's presented nicely. It's using the divine feminine to do the work for the Saturn Moon matrix energies. So these beings present themselves as magnetic, as riveting, as irresistibly powerful. They have thousands and thousands of followers. They use charm, they use aesthetics, fake aesthetics to appeal to certain type of people to get attention. But when the origin and intention behind the practice are revealed, they tend to get aggressive because they're rooted in inversion. So, yeah, this is how this system ensnares. So I want to dive into some numerology here. It's no surprise that number 6 is connected to the 6th day of the week, Saturn Day. Saturday is literally Saturn's day, from Latin, Saturni, the only day of the week still named after a Roman god in English. And Saturn, god of time, of course, agriculture, endings, and boundaries. So Saturn has many religious connections. We find Saturn in Judaism, Shabbat, Saturday. Shabbat is the day for rest, Saturday, no work, just focusing on stillness and boundaries. That's a Saturn theme. It's a time for reflection, for structure, for discipline. Now, I'm not saying these things are wrong. I'm saying that linking them to Saturn and having Saturn superimpose those on us and our free will is wrong. But to actually act of your own will, acting out of your own volition, and having a day off for reflection, is nothing wrong with that. It's just, it happens to be on a Saturday linked to Saturn. Okay, so there's that correlation there. Then we have in Christianity the 7th day tradition. Saturday is also the day for Sabbath by some groups, so the day for rest. The emphasis is restraint. I'm not sure if it's got any fasting traditions or but the focus is on spiritual discipline. And that's a good thing too. You know, I'm not necessarily saying that's evil, but the linking to Saturn specifically for everyone to practice on this day is, to me, it's a super imposition on the free will. Then you have like Hinduism. We have Shani Deva, which is a day, Saturday, dedicated to Shani, the Vedic Saturn. Hindus, they practice fasting and lighting sesame oil lamps and prayers for karmic relief. Notice this act of surrender, the act of praying for something external. So, you can see where I'm going with this. This is what this day is about for them. Then we have the occult and esoteric connections. We have planetary magic Saturday. Okay, this is where the rituals are held. This is the day when rituals are held on Saturdays, mainly because it's the best day for banishing protection, for ending cycles, for shadow work, ancestral work, and purification and karmic alignment. It's the day for alchemy, Saturday, because it corresponds to lead. And lead is the blackening stage, the stage of dissolution, the stage of introspection, and the day when illusions are removed, the veil is removed. And then we have Cabala, Saturday nights, Saturday day, night. It aligns with the third Sephira. It's called the Bina. And the theme for that is, of course, discipline, the Great Mother, the Great Cosmic Womb, and the Karmic structure, the whole Karmic structure. What else is Saturn connected to? It's also seen as a symbol for the number 5. If you've seen astrology, the 5 on the chart is Saturn. It's no coincidence that the false Merkaba spins at 55 charge. It's not the organic Merkaba of 45 charge. So it puts us in a false timeline, artificial AI timeline. And here on Earth, as you may know, things converge here. We reintegrate parts of the self into a higher anatomy here on Earth. But it's also here where we get stuck and we become more densified. And we risk the illusion of forgetting. And so 5 symbolizes that stuckness. It's a symbol of mind over matter, symbol of matter over mind. I'm sorry, not mind over matter. It's certainly not higher mind over matter. Matter is also energy, but solidified and stripped away from the light body in great amounts. Matter is energy, but solidified. And 5 locks us into the world of matter, the 5 senses, the 5 elements. The 5 is the number of change in numerology, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the midway to 10. So the midway on the Sephira, on the false tree of life, the Cabala tree of life. Saturn is the gatekeeper who changes you from spirit to matter. He stands between the 2 realms. Okay, so I hope I've explained this well. So this is essentially the symbolism, but I will be talking more symbolism. Can't help it. So I will talk more symbolism in a minute, okay? So I hope so far this is giving a little bit of insight into Saturn Lunar Matrix. This is where, from this point on, where things will get a little bit more intense. If you feel overwhelmed, I think it's best for you to sit this one out from here on. Because we're delving deeper now into the cult of Saturn. Okay, now something that we cannot go past, we see it everywhere, all around, flashing on and off everywhere, is something called the checkerboard floor. The checkerboard floor, the black and white cubes. Okay, it's used as a Masonic and occult symbolism, deeply tied to Saturn. Okay, it's not pretty. To me, it's not pretty because when I see it, oh my goodness, I feel suffocated. It's black, white squares. It's on a flattened version of anything, so you can't see the cube. But when you do a 3D print, you can see the cubes, okay? And what that symbolizes that they don't tell you, that it does, is the limitation, time, control, spiritual confinement. You're spiritually confined to the cubes. You can't move. There's always a limitation everywhere. The pattern also reflects the duality, Saturn's duality, of course, of light and dark, good and evil, the constant pull, push, the polarity. That's what they do in politics. They push you from here to here. They do it. They push you. They do horrible things to make you dislike them, pushing you the other side. Then the other side does the exact same thing, pushes you this side, giving the illusion of choice. So that's the Saturn game here. Biblically, Saturn is linked to Moloch, to Baal, to false worship, which again reinforces the theme of spiritual bondage. Even in tarot cards, the checkerboard represents duality on the floor. It's the merging of opposites. At this core, the checkerboard isn't about enlightenment, it represents captivity inside a system designed to shape your perception for you and keep you bound to the lower realm. Now, moving on to something a little bit more geometrical, we're moving into the geometry of the hexagon. Saturn is hex, built on the hex pattern, a hexagon, which has 6 triangles, 6 points, 6 sides. And what else is 666? It's carbon. Carbon is also made of 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. This entrapment is maintained through the iambic density lock, keeping us incarnating and reincarnating in 3-dimensional harmonic bands. And the way it does that, it severs its connection to your higher aspects. So then you think, okay, that's it. The light at the end of the tunnel is where I have to go and come back because I've got no option. So that's kind of how it keeps you stuck here. And the term beast, BST, refers to artificial wormhole technology, and also BST is blank slate technology, not state. Blank slate technology, mean memory wiping technology. Through your forgetting, you come back over and over, repeating the cycles, and then when you're here, they tell you, well, it's good for you, it's for your advancement. This technology is sinister because it's used to rip through time. It's ripping holes through time. That's why it's called a time rip technology. And the number 666 represents the conjunction of the time rip, a stargate structure that was formed by ripping holes to form a connection between phantom, black hole, and wizardic matrix, and Jupiter through our galactic gate. So this 3, phantom, wizardic, and Jupiter, is called the triple conjunction. And this is why Jupiter was once viewed as the ruler of the universe, because they created this conjunction and they called it God. They influenced this very matrix through the 666 gate. Of course, needless to say, the one world order APIN grid system. If you don't know what APIN is, watch my APIN video on YouTube. But the IPIN gridworks is pulsing with the 666 codes. It's constantly beaming those 666 codes through the grids, impacting, of course, all forms of life, resetting our templates, and it's mainly generated through parallel Earth, Vector 2, plugged in the Borgia matrix. So these codes, they're not random, they're chosen as symbols of control using this hex geometry, which if you look deeper, you will see hexed, which is short for hexagonal. New Age circles to religions, all using this hex geometry. It's designed for mind control and submitting people to the hive mind. It's found everywhere, and guess where the hexagon symbol is found? It's also found on Saturn's North Pole, which is tied to the Moloch worship. So if you don't know, Moloch is it is a deity which demands sacrifice. Children pass through fire as a form of sacrificial ritual for Moloch. This mirrors perfectly the Greek mythos of Kronos, who is a Saturn, who devoured his own children so they don't usurp his throne. There's also biblical connections that equate specific pagan deities with the star god that we know is Moloch and Baal. So yeah, there's a lot of the symbolism is telling us who really runs things here. In ancient Egyptian tradition, Saturn is Set, the Egyptian shadow aspect. It is, well, is it a coincidence that Hollywood filming happens on set? Then we have the Church of Set. What about the Great Reset? What about the Great Reset? They're trying to keep us locked into the Set cult. Some ancient traditions describe Saturn as the Lord of Karma, meaning it represents the lessons that keep us tied to the physical world until we finally grow past them. This idea feeds into the belief that Earth is some kind of prison planet. We're bound by karma, we're bound by time, repeated reincarnational cycles, aka cycles of samsara, which is the birth, old age, and death, and then rebirth. The black cube symbol shows up in sacred sites, in modern memorials, even in logos, and people interpret them as a sign of hidden knowledge. In this same framework, the Lunar Matrix theory suggests that Moon sends out artificial energetic waves shaping up octagonal geometry. So listen to this. An octagon has 1080 degrees. Okay, an octagon has 1080 degrees, 1080. Linked to 1080, 1080 hertz frequency. If you double that, you get 2160 hertz. What's the significance of the 2160 hertz? It's symbolically linked to the cube, representing the shift from octagonal transition to a cube structure. So we have the cube contained within the 1080, the 1080 hertz frequency or degrees. That's the octagonal geometry. And because of this symbolism, octagonal structures transmitted through the lunar matrix, through the moon, are seen as energy gateways. And the dome of the rock built on octagonal floor plan in Jerusalem is seen or interpreted as a major stargate aligned with the lunar cube matrix. Crazy. Okay, octagonal floor in Jerusalem. Now, fun fact, octagonal symbolism shows up in many, many Hollywood films, such as Man of Steel, Star Wars, John Wick series, Da Vinci Code, Batman, Avengers, Doctor Strange, Insidious, Octagon, Mission Impossible, Kung Fu Panda, and many more. And you can look into the octagonal architecture of global banks, technical companies, big tech companies, government agencies, and many more. One example is the Federal Reserve buildings. They have octagonal interior layouts. Hundreds of examples, but I'll move on. It's too many. So we can notice the octagonal geometry found in ancient structures and built on powerful ley lines throughout the Earth grid, as well as black cube designs used for religious worship, such as in Saudi Arabia, Mecca. This all goes back to moon and lunar control. The moon's artificial matrix becomes an embedded source of magnetic control with a primary octagonal pattern made in sound waves, in sonic sound waves, just to harvest massive amounts of energy from Earth grid network. And of course we have esoteric views that position the moon as a relay for Saturn signals, amplifying fear, amplifying guilt, amplifying self-resentment, amplifying constraint and limitation. The duo of the moon and Saturn forms a matrix that distorts emotions, biology, and funnels departing souls into controlled afterlives. So a controlled afterlife structure, as we see in ancient texts and regressions. Circling back for a moment, the question from before is whether we're making these soul contracts or whether we've been tricked and deceived into agreements we never wanted. Okay, here's my perspective. My perspective is that Saturn, Lunar Matrix, influences us into forming what we call soul contracts. It does that by taking advantage of our spiritual amnesia. By not knowing who we are tricked. In other words, these contracts often involve incarnating here, having children, engaging in life patterns that feed energy into Saturnian matrix. In this view, Saturn benefits from that energy because it has lost its original monadic connection. It becomes the one that sets the rules of the contract. So it sets the rules. Of course, when I say Saturn, I'm not talking about the planet having a mouth and hands and signing contracts. I'm talking about the whole matrix system and the beings that operate and use the energy from this system to their advantage. So when we descend into this realm, more than 96% of our consciousness and memory shuts down. We forget our identity as Or, as light, as Ilom, Iridona, as a spirit body. And the soul contract operates more powerfully and most powerfully when we are in a state of forgetting. And within this framework, demonic and fallen angelic entities act as enforcers of the system, ensuring that humans continue to generate energetic output that sustains the Saturn Moon energy, the Saturn Moon matrix. As long as we remain disconnected from our true memories and spiritual anatomy, the contract remains active and the cycle continues. So, here is where it gets heavy. I often talk about pleasing Saturn, but not in the sense of sacrificial or appeasement. For me, it means refining your own negative qualities and integrating the ego self. The work is completely alchemical, the blackening phase where polarities are brought together instead of avoided. Running from the Saturnian matrix, refusing to look at what we call darkness, only increases the fear. My approach is to face things directly, honestly, and without flinching. I won't pretend I'm fearless. I feel fear, but I also carry the courage to break limiting codes. I don't escape limitation, I bring it into my awareness, and that helps it transmute. So, there's a lot here that can be said, but I think I've already covered that. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is by acknowledging and recognizing the illusion of the material world and the shadow aspects within the self, this is how we evolve beyond limitations of the Saturn matrix. And I'll speak more to the healing solutions at the end. So yeah, I value discipline and devotional practice, and not devotion to a deity, not devotion to anything that's self-proclaimed God or a messenger of God. Only devotion to source and what unity consciousness is about. In all sincerity, just like many of you, I'm committed to my evolution, the inner work, the activations, the inner technologies, the shadow integration. This is where my devotion lies. By recognizing internal blind spots like fear, shame, guilt, I can overcome them. Ignoring them only reinforces these shadow aspects associated with Saturn. Now, this begs a question. Is karma real? Is karma the failure to fulfill a soul contract? Is karma fulfilling an unwanted soul contract? Or is it something else? I have a video on YouTube channel is about karma, but here I'm going to extend this, given a more deeper meaning to it. Okay? Karma is undeniably a real thing, but not a system of punishment. I've said this many times. Karma is cause and effect, it's just the cause of cause and effect, the energy consequences of choices made and actions. Now, Saturn governs this structure on density 1, but on higher levels, it's honored because free will is honored. And when we act against the law of one, or the law of the Christ, when we behave in anti-Christic ways, the consequences arise from the soul itself. This is what my soul generated for me as an experience to learn from it. Because there's no actual external being punishing you. It is your own soul experiencing the result of its own prior choices. And to be honest, I still hold a degree of resentment about this system because I see a lot of nice people who are just have got the worst events. They live experiences that are beyond bearable. And I love the Christ and I love God's source deeply, but I also feel drawn to a reality. I feel like I can only thrive in a reality where evil has no place at all. And as Ashayana Dean explains, imposing limitations on the negative expression, this is something I'm yet to integrate, is that imposing a limitation on the negative expression automatically imposes a limitation on the positive expression. This is the paradox. So that's something I'm yet to integrate, to accept. I have contempt for trickery, and the astral field is full of it. And yes, I have a little bit of fear going into the astral. But this is where forged soul contracts occur. Souls agreeing to return to Earth. So we're all going to go astral one day, whether this life through projection or afterlife, so to speak. We're going to have to face it. When these agreements are designed to actually keep us entrapped. So Saturn, in my opinion, represents karmic lessons. It enforces the contracts and ensures the soul pays out what it unknowingly agreed to. Okay? This is the blind spot here. This is the trickery. This is the mockery. Soul contracts become karmic agreements just because of someone's ignorance that binds them and binds their spirit to this realm. These negative entities and fallen angelics are the masterminds of this domain. So we have been tricked, yes, but at the same time, this can be a result of our own doing collectively and individually. We knew the risk of coming here. We knew the incarnation carries a danger of forgetting who we are. And we still projected here. And there's a portion of us that came down from higher levels of awareness, and where the Christos self remains intact. So even if we come here, we still have the Christos self that remains intact. This is a small portion of people who incarnated here. And look, to me, in my opinion, even if this portion of myself falls here, the mission is still worthwhile because it helps other souls pierce the illusion. So it's in service. But that's just my personal view. There's also souls that project not downwards, but rise from the bottom up, through spirals of creation, through spirals of evolution, beginning with smaller amounts of consciousness and then accreting frequency. They're born directly into the entrapment system. Okay, they're born directly into it. They have no priori knowledge. And their task remains somewhat easier, I think, personally, okay, because they haven't experienced the positive path yet. So to them, that's just it. And their task is to free themselves from the limitation of karma, from soul contracts, and from the Saturnian matrix. So this is why those people that project on a downward spiral have come here for this mission, to help people who are not necessarily on that same path. Now, something I've also observed, which is really interesting, okay, is that Saturn loops for 29.5 years around the Sun. This is the number of years, 29.5 years, for Saturn to transit the entire natal chart, reinforcing lessons and karmic themes and etc. The Saturn return often is painful because it forces a painful, radical reassessment of one's life, of one's path, of choices, responsibilities, and unresolved karma. This is a miniature version of the large reincarnational loop that we're stuck in. Now, this is going to blow your mind because, like they say, numbers don't lie. Okay, so the 29.5 years, okay, now that's the loop, Saturn loop around the Sun. 1080, remember the octagonal degrees. It's the sum of the degrees of the octagon. Okay, I worked this out myself. I thought, what if I divided 1080 by 29.5 and I got 36. Okay, I got the number 36. What's so special about 36? You may ask, okay, so what's 36? Well, listen to this. 36 is the number of decans in astrology. Decan system is used to track time through the ancient Egyptian tradition. It's also the number of squares in a 6x6 magic square associated with Saturn. 36 is the root number of 666. 36 is a golden ratio entry number into the pentagram geometry. 36 is third harmonic of the sacred number 108. What else is 108? Oh, it's the octagon. 36 is a number of celestial guardians and divine beings in Zoroastrian text and in Tile temples, and much more. Okay, it's in Jewish mysticism. 36 is the number of the righteous ones. It's also in the tattvas in Hindu metaphysics, the number of the tattvas. Is it a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that it's the number used by the Buddhists in certain mandalas? They use 36. So, of course, this could be a coincidence, but it's an observation anyhow. Do what you will with this information, okay? Now, my advice, my recommendation is don't sign contracts in the afterlife because you don't have to return here. This is just one thing I wanted to mention, just casually. Don't sign contracts in the afterlife. Okay, we don't need to have a contract, a binding contract. We are free souls. We are free souls. Now, since we're already on the Saturn topic, I also want to unpack a whole cluster of Saturn-related words and concepts. So I'm going a little deeper now. Saturn as a causative for spells. Okay, it's a cluster of words containing root, cron, C-R-O-N, is being linked to themes of time, of limiting time, control, obedience, and predictive programming. There's an interesting connection here because consider the word corona as in crown, and similarity between coronavirus, its variant Omicron, and cron related to Saturn. Okay. In Greek, chronos is associated with time. So the word chronos, chronic sickness, chronic pain, chronos with a K, they're all linked to time, control, predictive programming, all linked to Saturn. The word that comes to mind also is chronovisor, and that's aligned with the Vatican, time viewing device in the Vatican. So I wonder whether that's a coincidence as well. Okay. Okay, so now for the wrap, for the healing part, the practical steps to strengthen our angelic body and override these reversal codes and break free from the stuckness and the repeating cycles. So first we have to heal from the 666 sextant time clock and the beast machine. Now, just for those who don't know, the 9th gate is the Andromedan gate. Through this gate, we pass through the next lot of gates linked to 12, gate 12, the Lyran gates, and 13, the new Eka, which is the ascension gates, if you like. And it's the left path of the Manu on the Kathara grid is the 3, 6, 9, 12, 13. This is how we reach the Mother Arc. This is called the Stairway to Heaven in the Freedom Teachings. Okay. The Golden Gate is number 9, 9th dimension. It links us back to our original matrix from whence we came. And here's a fun fact, the occult, the dark occult, they love the number 18 because if you add 1 and 8 equals 9. 9 is the dimension they have been trying to reverse. They're trying to take over the whole 9th gate, the Andromeda gate, because once upon a time angelic humans were residing in the 9th, in the Andromeda galaxy, and we fell into something called the Phantom Milky Way system, also known as the Prosiac Matrix. We come from a Christic system called Aquinos, M31 in Andromeda, or the Aquael Center, and we fell into the Prosiac Matrix. Now we're trying to shift back our pole axis tilt from 23.5 to 0 degrees so we can align with the solar north, with the true north, back to Aquinos Matrix. This is what is called as a Christos realignment mission. Christos realignment mission. The process is not climbing physically as much as it is going within and connecting to the frequencies of the inner hub gates. In other words, it's a spiritual ladder through the core gate 3 of Earth, leaping back into Andromeda, into the M31. The 8th gate got infected. This is the monad. This is our monadic point. And this in turn distorted our heart connection to the universe through gate 8 to 14 when the entire system fell. So that's like 350 billion years ago. So we're still trying to heal from that fall. Okay. Therefore, healing must begin at heart level, because heart level is your 4th dimension, and it's linked to the monad, to the Azare. I've mentioned this on numerous occasions, especially in Manifest. 2 parts to it, 2 videos, and the monad, which you can watch. When the heart is healed, there is a fire that's ignited. There's a flame, the true flame is ignited in the heart, and that becomes accessible. And the fire in the heart is also in the kidneys. These are the triangles that connect to the heart in the kidneys. When the heart's healed, there's a twin flame ignition in our heart and kidneys, which automatically shifts the heart configuration. Twin flame equals structures of light within the heart. So 2 flames ignite the heart. The monad is the greater flame, and the physical body is the lesser flame. And when this dual flame is ignited, there is an ignition in the heart and the fire coming into the kidneys, which becomes a detoxifying process and a blood cleansing process. So it's important. This is the main ignition, the heart. The monadic spark is the higher heart ignition. It starts the process of connection to something called permanent seed atom. And so this is a Christ consciousness silicate matrix, and a whole new instruction is sent through to the body that restores the crystal body. This is what the negative aliens fear, the fallen angelics fear the most, and they're attempting to crush and stop us from flowering, from positive flowering in the human population. They want to crush the permanent seed atom inside the thymus gland center, which is the 8th chakra. The way they can do this, they can't reach directly into the 8th and take it out. So what they do is they make you physically sick. Because when you're sick physically, you are unable to ignite this triangle where the monad starts coming in and actually connecting into the body. If we can hold this higher base pulse rhythm of D12, shield and above, and this is what's important to do in the Maharic shield daily, if we can hold that pulse rhythm of D12, we create a circumference in the area where we can literally create a safe zone on Earth. Because presently and for a long time, most of Earth's grids are damaged. So now for the monadic restoration, we have to do Kathara healing course, including lotus body, crystal body activations. In the freedom teaching, when something's materialized, it carries less spirit and more matter. This is what the form means. Form means separating from the organic light body, not the spirit body. Spirit body will always attach to that. We can't separate from the spirit body. Now, our etheric ethos and eros cells represent our spirit that has been disconnected from our physical body through something called threshold technology. Again, freedom teaching technologies heal these connections between eros and ethos lines and our physical body, restoring that spirit light body connection. Okay, so this is why it's important to do Kathara healing technologies. Now, indigo souls have a mission, a greater mission. Their mission is a bridge between time and matter, and to help free themselves first and others through something called indigo shield, because they carry memory of what once was. They carry it in their DNA. However, most forget who they are and where they come from. They project into lower dimensions. They become trapped in the Saturn Lunar Matrix, trapped in time, and therefore they forget who they are and they start all over. This is why indigo souls have a rapid activation ascension when they wake up, because they've been here before. It doesn't take long to reactivate their codes and their memories back online. Starseeds and indigos are attempting to embody as much of the monadic consciousness at the moment through the permanent seed atom and the higher heart complex and the thymus gland right now. This is why physical healing is important too. Fasting, cleansing, all that is very important because it heals the body, helps restore monadic connection. Now, how do we heal from the 666 entrapment? In simple terms, it's by taking back your power and lending very little to absolutely no energy, if possible, to the matrix of duality. That's number one. It's a given. Number two, grounding in primal light and sound fields. So running the frequencies, running the Amaria, doing the lotus breaths, and as a very minimum, the Maharic shield and the Akashic shield. And number three, following organic Christic timeline rather than the sextant clock. So not engaging in the calendar events and the equinox and solstices because they're following the wrong timeline. And so it's important to begin the healing journey from inside out, not from outside in. And if you can only do it from outside in through food and nourishment, the physical body, then that's okay. Any form of healing is good healing, okay? But don't use the technology, the light technology, and because that's the med beds and such. This may be difficult to understand, particularly if we look at the world outside and see nothing but evil. However, if you can remember that you are a microcosm of the macrocosm, and if you do not consent to opposition, then parasitism, what constitutes parasites, cannot wrap you up in energy extraction loosh game if you don't consent to it. People often ask, how do you know the techniques are working? You will know. You will know. Your body will tell you. Here's questions you can ask yourself. Are the techniques working? This will determine if it's a yes or no. Is your mind stepping out of foreign events and turning inwards? Are you more in tune with yourself? Do you feel more aware of what your environment is about? Can you sense toxicity and parasitism? Do you feel the negative energy and how to transmute shadow? These are symptoms of inner technologies working. If you are honing these abilities, if you are in tune with yourself, if you are stepping out of foreign events and turning more in, then the inner technologies are working. There's a large portion of people who don't necessarily follow the freedom teaching paradigm. However, if I can be honest, I'll say this, and please take this with a grain of salt. I think this time it's important to use technologies, the freedom teaching inner technologies. There's a reason they were brought here during this stellar activation cycle from 2000 to 2017 when the stargates were open. We needed them, and we still do need them, even after the stellar cycle, because these technologies put you on a different timeline. Not in the Star War timeline, it puts you on Starfire timeline. Okay, these inner technologies follow pure organic system of Kathara healing. They are the only techniques that I know of that hold pure organic encryption on the planet right now. They're the only techniques I know of that follow true 12-dimensional format, that activate the energy field the right way through mathematical configurations not found anywhere else on the planet. These are for everyone and anyone who wants to correct their Merkaba field, because in truth, our Merkaba field's distorted right now because of the distorted grids. So these inner technologies or the freedom teachings provide sequence to clear also the BST implants through flame body activations and techniques. They clear Jehovian seals and Zeta seals, shadow integration, shadow work, using the Vecca codes, reciting the Azerite Signet Council songs, PSONNS. This all for the undoing of fallen angelic spelling within your genetic alphabet DNA sequence. It's all found in the freedom teaching syllabus. You may know it as Keylontic science. This is also true. These can't be faulted, in my opinion, because you can sense the effect on yourself, on your being, on your morphogenetic field. Most people I personally assist tell me that they have resolved so much in their shadow body, removing implants through the proper use of these techniques. Next solution, of course, is to heal from implants, reversals, and shadow matrix. And one cannot go past love, the frequency of love. It's the organic 0-point field, because it's a path of non-duality where the polar opposites meet in the middle, where duality ends. And love is connected to our prana. It's connected to deep foreheart energy that holds a spark at the middle called the Eron point that attaches our light body and physical body to the spirit body. It's the glue of everything coming together. Mind, body, and spirit. the Honateleia Trinity. And that beautiful Honateleia code, I love. It's the pastel pink and pastel blue and pastel yellow, 3 circles intertwined. And prana is important, of course, because it's the meiotic and diodic crystal body backflow regulator between the two, which the prana is a carrier for the mane, masculine light body, and the jari, which is an ire, feminine spirit body. And so it's important to run prana the right way. When love is not present, the law of free will is violated, because the absence of love is fear, and fear is a control method. And when free will is violated, the law of one is violated, and this leads to systems of control, not freedom. Instead of anchoring to the Azare, the organic 0-point seed, it anchors in the AI hive network, in an AI-based singularity seed, which operates and needs fear to operate, to continue. If you watch Pluribus, someone recommended to watch Pluribus, and I found it so much that it mirrors exactly what I'm saying right now, the hive mind. So you can see it, the planet, as a hive mind, but you can see it as a place where everything converges, and you're here to transcend all those limitations. The planet is described as an operating like a programmed simulation influenced by hive mind systems designed to harvest energy and keep humanity in this limited state. However, Earth was not originally built this way. It was built with eternal harmonious codes. And it holds, like I've said before, a key strategic point in the universe as a stargate within this 15-dimensional universe, originally built with eternal harmonious codex. After the ancient multidimensional conflicts that occurred, whether it be the electrical wars and the Gaian wars and everything, the universe shifted into a damaged finite system. Because of Earth's strategic position, the various negative entities allegedly infiltrated it using mind control tactics, propaganda, artificial grid structures to suppress human consciousness. So then we see biowarfare and contamination, psychological operation, nuclear weapons. All these are long-running agendas, they're not new. And human consciousness is in the middle of this. Human consciousness, with its varying degrees, is set to shape the reality field that we're living in. At the moment, it's a collective fear. It's fear, everywhere you look. Ego distortions, mass thought forms, easy to manipulate. People who are just in the hive mind set. All this is weaponized against the greater population, of course. So another solution is to check if you're denying your own shadow, if you're running from that dark, if you're running from it even out of fear, you're running from a part of yourself that actually means healing. You can't rise above what you refuse to look at. So see it, acknowledge it, and then rise. Don't feed it, but don't hide from it. Integration is actually what moves us forward. And yeah, honestly, I don't blame people who fear the dark. I used to be terrified of the dark until I found my inner strength, and it was through work, a lot of work and dedication. And I realized that what drives me, what empowers me, is far more stronger than anything the dark can throw at me. What we're seeing in the world right now is a collapse of old programs running on fear. People are fighting each other because they're still at war with themselves. That's what I'm seeing. So people also on the other side, the New Age circle, say we're all one. We're all one. And on the highest level of consciousness, yes, everything comes from source. But in this density here, we're not all one. There's people who are mobilizing agendas and mobilizing people to work for a very dark agenda. It's called evil. It's the opposite to live. And we're not one with these forces. We're not one with people who harm others. We're not one with people who do bad things to children and those who lack compassion and empathy. Compassionate people don't see themselves as the same as others who choose destruction. So this theory that we must accept evil as part of ourselves is a New Age trap designed to make us tolerate what we should never tolerate. So I'm not one with surrender to what is. If it comes knocking on your door, we have to fight it back. I'm not one with anti-life. I'm not one with dark flowering. I'm not one with evil. Evil, eventually though, if you don't fight it, it's going to collapse on its own weight, because only goodness will continue. That's the balance restored. That's fairness in creation, because there's still fairness in creation. Even though polarities are allowed to exist, there is still an element of bias towards the positive. So fairness in creation is that evil is going to bring its own self down because it's finite. At the end of the day, we can only master our own inner worlds, and that begins and ends with our own energy field. And your energy field is defined by what you put in it, and especially the intentions you carry in your own heart, and your authenticity and commitment to your path of growth and nothing else. Okay, so these are theories, theoretical solutions. There is a protocol for the inner technologies as well, which includes, but not limited to, running a Maharic shield, available on our YouTube channel, Emerald Amethyst Awakening, also on YouTube channel. Removing Jehovah's seals using the Vecca codes, also on our channel for free. Cutting energies, unwanted energies, also on our channel for free. Cathara 1 to Cathara 4 crystal body activations. They are the core work of the Freedom Teachings. Building charge in your morphogenetic field to reset your divine template and rebuild your crystal body template. This can't be reversed once it's built. And of course, Cathara 4 is rebuilding the organic cluster of a network of Adon cells to re-establish the Kethradon flame charge, to override all false Metatronic codes. And this is what we need to override Metatronic time waves. There is also an entire library of sound technologies, magic words of co-creation for Cathara restructuring and soul manifestation abilities. Son of Lyra is a declaration of unity with one's own Christos self. Son of Orion reconnects you with your monadic shield. Son of Aurora, Crystal River Prayer, to connect with the Isha Niue races. And so these sons, we can actually ride the Starfire Ascension arcs, go through the gates when the time comes for us. If you like, feel free to navigate this playlist on YouTube channel. There's playlists dedicated for healing technologies, songs, meditations, and techniques that you could begin utilizing. So that's it. And last point I want to make is don't abandon yourself. I'm feeling like, I'm only saying this because it's an observation I'm making. I'm feeling more and more people are abandoning themselves. People giving up on themselves because they can't do this anymore. It's too much. Just remember, there's always a solution, and when you stop abandoning yourself, the dark stops having anything to feed on. because that's what they want you to do. Abandon yourself so we can take over. So no, don't do that. That's where real power begins. This is what us being here is all about. So let's all rise together and continue this upward and outward journey of discovery and growth. It is the inner journey that ultimately propels us into a state of inner resolve. Okay, so that's it from me. In unity and omni love. Take care.